Hello, a very warm welcome to today's Scottish Golf Zoom panel, where we're delighted to be joined by our very own David Kernahan and Adam Phillips from our handicapping and course rating team here at Scottish Golf. I'm Ian Evans, Club Business Manager at Scottish Golf, and I'll be your host today as we welcome 500 golfers to today's World Handicapping System Zoom panel call. On today's call, golfers from across Scotland will have the opportunity to hear from David and Adam, who will provide a brief 10-minute presentation on some of the key features of the new World Handicapping System launching on the 2nd of November 2020. During the call, attendees can submit any questions they may have by clicking on the Q&A function below and simply typing it in. We have received more than 250 pre-submitted questions, so we won't have time to get to the live ones in this session. However, we will produce a frequently asked questions document after the event, which will take into account all live questions as well as any pre-submitted ones. So please do submit any questions you have. So without further delay, I'll hand over to David and Adam.
Thanks, Ian. It's great to be here. It's great to be discussing the World Handicap System with golfers from all over Scotland. Thanks to everyone for joining and for giving up your time this evening. With only 3 weeks away, to the countdown is clearly on. So we wanted to do a short presentation followed by a quick Q&A to help answer the questions that golfers may be asking at the minute. The purpose of the short presentation is to help golfers understand the key features and how the system will work from November. We've tried to show real examples to help golfers understand the key changes. The focus will be on the purpose of the change, the handicap index, the course handicap, and the playing handicap allowance. While the change seems quite complex, if you can understand these three components and how they will work, then it will give you a good understanding of the system. It's also important to remember that all the systems being put in place will work out all the necessary components of the system so that golfers can just continue to focus on their enjoyment of the game and allow the systems that have been put in place to take care of the calculations. I'll just bring up the presentation. Give me an okay when you can see the slides there, Adam.
That's it, David.
Being shared okay? Perfect.
Yeah.
One of the biggest questions we're getting asked at the minute is why are we changing? You know, what's the purpose of the new World Handicap System? Well, the system's been designed by the RNA and the USGA, and it has three main objectives. The first one is to encourage as many golfers as possible the opportunity to obtain and maintain a handicap. The second one is to enable golfers of different abilities, genders, and nationalities to take their handicap to any course in the world and compete on a fair and equal basis, and to indicate with sufficient accuracy the score a golfer is reasonably capable of achieving on any course around the world playing under normal conditions. And we're really confident that the rules of handicapping meet these objectives, that golfers will find them to be fair, inclusive, and that handicap administrators will find them to be modern, adaptable code that can be consistently applied across the whole of the globe. Why change to WHS? This has been a big question we've been asked. The current system is based on a player's potential ability and does not provide portability while traveling from course to course or equity during competitive play. There's 6 different systems around in place around the globe at the minute, and each calculates differently, creating different handicaps. Golf already has a set of unified playing rules, 1 set of equipment rules, and 1 code for amateur status. So all the handicap authorities around the globe definitely felt it was the time was right to introduce a unified handicap system. The benefits of WHS, it's inclusive. It will make it as easy as possible for golfers to obtain and maintain that handicap. As we've said, it's portable, so golfers can take their handicap index to any course around the world and receive a course handicap, which we'll explain in a bit more detail. It's consistent. It allows golfers from around the world to compete and play recreationally on a fair and equal basis. It's modern and adaptable. You'll get real-time updates of your handicap every day and accommodating of local cultures. So we don't see this changing the way golf is played in Scotland. We just need to understand differently how our handicaps are working. And it's fair. It measures and stores a golfer's demonstrated ability and reflects current form. Onto the key features. The first slide we're going to discuss here is the handicap index slide and the basis of calculation. It's based on an average of your best 8 scores out of your last 20, and scores can be made up of both competition and general play scores. General play scores is a new benefit of the system and something I'm sure every golfer will look to utilize. Any score from social golf play on any course can count towards your handicap as long as it's been pre-registered for and played by the rules. You will see a scoring record here, The main components that go into figuring this out is course record, course rating, slope rating, your adjusted gross score, and the score differential. So you can see I've used my current scoring record to show how this would be calculated. And I'm just going to talk through each one of these headings so a golfer knows basically what they mean. The first one is the course rating, which is an indication of the difficulty of a golf course for the scratch player under normal course and weather conditions. You'd probably recognize this, you know, your current SSS is based on this number, but it's currently rounded to a whole number. So this course rating number is basically your CSS number that has been rounded up. The slope rating is an indication of the relative difficulty of a golf course for a bogey player compared to the scratch golfer. So basically you get a course rating and a bogey rating, and then you basically multiply the difference by a constant factor. And that's how you get the slope rating. It's not based on how difficult a golf course is, which is a current misconception, but rather how difficult a golf course is, you know, that difference between the bogey and the scratch rating. So some golfers may think they're playing a really tough golf course, but the slope rating is quite low. And that's because the difference between the course rating and the bogey rating is not as high as people may think they are. So that's how we get the slope rating calculation. The adjusted gross score is the gross score submitted for a round with any adjustments like net, double, bogey, as is currently the case. Everyone should understand adjusted gross score, hopefully. And the score differential, which is what the handicap index calculation is based on, is basically a calculation of the adjusted gross score taking into account the slope and course rating, and that's how we get that score differential. The best 8 of those score differentials are then taken out of your last 20 scores, added together, divided by 8, and that's how we get your handicap index. So this is just to show you how it would work out mine, and then obviously we've got Adam's, who's on the call here as well. And there's Adam's handicap index based on the best 8 scores out of his last 20. If you don't have 20 scores on your scoring record, an average is applied based on how many scores you do have on your scoring record. So you don't need to worry if you don't have 20 scores, you still will get a handicap index based on how many scores you do have on your scoring record. The next slide is the course handicap. And this is the most important handicap for a golfer to remember. This is the handicap a player will use for their round. Course handicap will determine the number of strokes a player will receive when playing from any set of tees on any given course. Before a player starts their round, they must convert the handicap index into a course handicap. And this is the handicap as a set a player must put on their card and use for the round of golf being played. One thing that's important to remember is that there's a system and charts in place to help golfers understand this, and I'll show you some examples of these shortly. But here's 2 examples of where Adam and I would be potentially playing a round of golf on 2 different courses. You can see that the handicap index, you go through that calculation, the handicap index multiplied by the slope divided by 113, and the course handicap would be what you would see on the right there. So the Sterling Golf Club, where I'm a member at, the slope 127, Adam's course handicap would increase to 14, and mine would stay consistent at 2, so not much change for the lower handicap. If we went and played an open competition at Kilspindie Golf Club, you can see the slope actually comes down from 113. So we wanted to show an example of the difference where your course handicap might reduce based on the slope of another golf course. So you can see here that Adam's course handicap would come down to 11, but mine would stay consistent at 2 there as well. So it just shows the higher your handicap index, the more your course handicap would fluctuate from course to course based on the slope of the set of tees you're playing from. And I think that's really important when we go to look onto the playing handicap allowance. One of the questions we've had is why do we have a playing handicap or a playing allowance? And that will ensure the equity for the competition. And hopefully, when you see some examples of the course handicap over the next few slides, you'll see why the playing handicap or playing allowance has been introduced. One of the key tools we're going to give golfers to help understand what their course handicap could potentially be is on the Scottish Golf website and in the Scottish Golf app, you'll have a course rating database and a course handicap calculator. So you'll be able to go on. When you log in, it'll know who you are. So the handicap index on the right will be defaulted to your exact handicap index. But for here, I've changed it around so you can see how different handicaps indexes would be converted on the same golf course. And I've used Carnoustie here for illustration purposes because they have quite a variance of slope ratings across all their sets of tees. So on this course rating lookup and course handicap conversion, You'll see that Adam playing at Carnoustie, his course set of tees they're playing on. And I think even the blacks there, his handicap could potentially move up to 15. So that just shows you that course handicap in a real life example. And all golfers will be able to access this in order to see how their handicap, course handicap will be calculated from different sets of tees. If you then looked at my handicap index and how that would be calculated at Carnoustie, you'll see that it stays pretty consistent across all the courses there. So the lower your handicap index is, the less your course handicap will fluctuate from course to course. And then we wanted to show you an example of a higher handicap golfer. As you can see here, a player who potentially playing off 24, their course handicap would increase a fair bit over the different sets of tees at Carnoustie. And I think when you see it illustrated like that, it really shows just how important that playing handicap is, but we'll discuss in a little bit shortly. It just shows you why important it is to ensure that equity in the competition. Some other tools we'll be giving golfers so they can help understand their course handicap. Is course handicap charts have been made available to every single golf club. So if there's no system provided or you haven't been able to get onto the Scottish Golf app or website beforehand, when you go to the golf club, these course handicap charts will be made available, and they'll easily show what your handicap index is and potentially what your course handicap will be used on that day. And they'll be provided for both genders, so both male and females will have course handicap charts available at all golf clubs to understand what course handicap they'll be using on the day. And lastly, just another example of some tools we've made available to help golfers understand and to use under WHS. The one on the left is a general play screen in our Scottish Golf app, which will be available to all Scottish golfers in order to submit your general play rounds. Even if your club is using a different software provider, you will still be able to download and use this app to submit your scores all year round directly to the WHS platform. And as you can see here, you'll simply log on to the Scottish Golf app, you'll select your venue, select your course, you'll confirm that you're pre-registering and putting in that general play score, and then it will take you into the scorecard in order to submit that round. At the end, you'll sign your scorecard off in the app, so you actually have to apply a signature to that, and also a signature for your marker, as well as additional information so we can contact that marker in case we have any questions about the round that's been played. There is also some safeguards that have been built into this product to protect against manipulation. It's GPS located, it'll know you're at the golf course. And there's also a time limit that's been put in place, so you can't just submit all your scores at once. So there's been some extra safeguards put in place to ensure the integrity of that round that's been submitted. And on the right is for golf clubs who've been using our software, the software providing to golf clubs currently. If you're entering a competition, the app knows who you are, it knows what competition you're playing in, it knows what format you're playing in. So when you enter that competition, it'll go through the calculation of display your course handicap and playing handicap quite clearly for that competition being played. So once again, we're just trying to show that while there is a few components which may seem quite confusing, the systems that are being put in place by Scottish Golf and all the other providers that are offering software to golf clubs will make it as easy as possible for the golfer to understand the change and what their course handicap and playing handicaps will potentially be on the day. Without further ado, I'll hand over to Adam, who's going to discuss the playing handicap and the other components of the system in a little bit more detail.
Thanks, David. So far, we've looked at how the handicap index is calculated and the course handicap. Now we'll take a look at the playing handicap. The playing handicap is the stroke allowance that a player will receive when playing in a competition. It provides equity for the competition and ensures all golfers compete on a fair and equal basis. It is only used for competition purposes, so golfers do not need to calculate it. It will be generated before their round by the software being used by the golf club or competition provider. The software will do all the work in the background for you for competition results. It's important to remember that it's the course handicap that golfers must use and put on your scorecard for competitive rounds. This is what is used for your handicap adjustments on your record and to work out any net double bogey adjustments. Looking at the calculation there on the slide, the playing handicap equals your course handicap times your handicap allowance. So if we take the example, if David and I were both entering a stroke play competition at Stirling, David ran through the course handicap calculation just earlier on, and from these figures, we apply the 95% playing allowance for stroke play, and you can see that my playing handicap would drop to 12.8 and David's to 1.8. The RNA and USGA, they've done extensive testing on this, and the data has showed that if 100% allowance was used, then competitions would not be equitable and would be favourable to the higher handicap golfers. So a 95% allowance was found to provide equity for all players. Moving to the next slide, under WHS, in order to be an acceptable score, these should follow these criteria. The score needs to be in an authorised format of play, i.e. individual stroke play and Stableford competitions, and not match play. It needs to be over a minimum number of holes, which would either be 9 holes or 18 holes. For a 9-hole score to be acceptable, all 9 holes must be played. For an 18-hole score to be acceptable, a minimum of 10 holes must be played. However, there has to be a valid reason why holes are not played. For example, fading light or player illness or injury. When the reason is valid, a player's score can be scaled up to an 18-hole score to go on their record. Using this scaling up method, clubs may also choose to run, for example, 12-hole competitions, which could now count for handicap purposes. So this is another benefit that WHS offers there. The score needs to be, by the rules of golf, it needs to be with at least one other person and on a course with a current course rating and slope rating. Also, during an active season, under WHS in GB&I, there's no off-season, and so cards can be submitted all year round, provided they're played off a set of tees that has a valid course and slope rating. As with other jurisdictions, there is no provision for a separate winter handicap solution under WHS. Lastly, a score needs to be certified in accordance with the rules of handicapping, i.e. a general play round must be pre-registered before you go out and play. Moving on to the next slide. There are safeguard features built into the new system to prevent a handicap being manipulated or rising too quickly in a short space of time. A key feature of WHS is the cap. The software will remember and display the lowest handicap index achieved by a player during the 12-month period preceding the most recent score on your record. This provides an anchor point to limit any extreme upward movement of a player's handicap index within the 365-day period. Caps can only start to take effect once a player has 12 acceptable scores in their record. We've had a few questions on this, and the soft and the hard cap will also be used for calculating players' initial WHS index to limit any increase to a maximum of 5 shots above your current Congu handicap. Another feature built into WHS is the exceptional score reduction. If a player posts a score with a differential much lower than their handicap index, the software will automatically apply an extra reduction of either -1 or -2 strokes to their record. The aim being that this will again help to reflect players' demonstrated ability. Next slide, we look at another key element of WHS, which is the playing conditions calculation, or PCC for short. The PCC assesses whether playing conditions on the day were normal or significantly harder or easier than normal. It is the equivalent of the current CSS, but considers all scores submitted on the whole day on a particular course instead of by individual competitions. It is applied directly to a player's scoring record at the end of the day, and it ranges from -1 to +3, just like the CSS. So moving on to sum up the key points of WHS that we've covered in the presentation. The basic calculation is done by using the best 8 of the last 20 scores on your record. A slope rating adjustment is used to provide a course and playing handicap. A cap mechanism is in place to restrict upward movement too quickly and prevent manipulation of handicaps. PCC is automatically calculated to allow for playing conditions on the day. An exceptional score leads to an immediate extra reduction. This can be triggered by 1 score. The net double bogey adjustment provides a maximum hole score for handicap purposes, as it does at the moment. So really the important thing to remember is to go out and play and enjoy your golf, and the software will do all the work for you in the background. So actually that concludes our short presentation on the key features of the new system. And I'll now hand back over to Ian for the Q&A session.
Thank you very much for that, Adam. And thank you to you as well, David, for that insightful presentation. I'm sure there's plenty of information on there for golfers. Now we're going to move on to our question and answer session, where David and Adam will try to answer as many of the most frequently asked questions we've received from today's attendees, and there was over 250. So we've grouped them into some key topics. I'm going to start with WHS overall. David, if I come to you first, the question is, we seem to be moving away from a very simple system in relation to handicaps to a system that appears to be very complex. What are the improvements expected with this change that do not confuse the average golfer?
Yeah, I think it's important to remember, as we've stated in the presentation area, and that the systems that are being put in place will do all the calculations for the golfer. But as far as the improvements, the new system is based on a player's demonstrated ability or current form instead of their potential ability, and will move quicker to represent that current form. Will also provide that portability in the course handicap with the inclusion of slope and the equity in the playing allowance for different formats. So while it may seem more complex in the current system, I think that once golfers get used to the system and actually see it in action and see how their handicap is calculated and see how it fluctuates and changes as they go to different courses, I think it'll be quite simple to understand. And as we've said, the important thing to remember is the systems are being provided by the national associations and the golf clubs will do all the calculations so a golfer can still continue to enjoy their golf and submit scores, and then just simply check their record the next day to see and understand the change that has taken place. I think general play, as we've touched on, is a massive opportunity for golfers. I think that, the fact that a golfer can, so long as they pre-register and play the game by the WHS requirements, so they can submit any round from any golf course on the globe all year round, potentially, is a massive opportunity for golfers who wish to consume their golf in this way. So as we go back, the help being provided to golfers, as I said, there's a lot of content and material that's been provided to clubs and golfers already to help understand the change. Our golfers can go to our website, and within the WHS section on our website, they can see the full rules of handicapping for WHS. They've got the player's guide, so it's a simplified understanding of the changes that are going to take place under WHS, and a really good tool for the golfer to understand how the change is going to impact them. We've sent out WHS packs to all clubs, so hopefully golfers have seen those materials made available to the golfers within the golf clubs. The course rating charts, course handicap charts, as we've shown in the presentation, have been sent out to all clubs as well, so I'm sure golfers will start seeing these being displayed within their golf clubs and on their scorecards as well. The Scottish Golf app is available to download for all golfers with a handicap, so they can submit their scores directly into the system. The course rating database, as we've shown during the presentation, course handicap calculators will be available on the app and the website. These live and recorded webinars, I think, are really important to help understand the change, and really important so we can answer the golfers' questions, because even though we provide the information, I think these kind of webinars and platforms are really useful to help answer questions that the golfers may have. And on the back of all this, we're going to start a golfers campaign that focuses on the key components a golfer needs to know to understand the changes for WHS.
Thanks very much, David. I know these webinars are something we're going to continue doing going forward to support clubs and golfers alike. I'd like to move on to the topic of the handicap index now. Adam, if I come over to you, the question is, will NRs and DQs be counted in the last 20 rounds when allocating handicaps?
NRs and DQ scores can be used for the initial WHS calculation if the net double bogey adjustment has been applied to produce an adjusted gross score. Provided that a score differential has been calculated, the software will be able to use this in the average of the best 8 from the last 20 score differentials on a player's record, then slope adjust them as we showed in the presentation, to produce your initial WHS index.
Okay, and also Adam, so will a player be required to complete a minimum, presently 3 rounds per year?
There will no longer be a requirement to complete the 3 rounds a year to retain a competition handicap. If a player is a member of a golf club, their handicap index won't lapse. However, the more scores that a player has on their record, the more accurate their index will be of that demonstrated ability.
Okay, and finally on this topic, Adam, will there still be handicap categories?
Under WHS, there will be no handicap categories or buffer zones. It will be up to clubs to decide on handicap limits for competitions and handicap categories to provide an opportunity for all the handicap levels to play competitively that best suits their club.
Thank you very much. And on still on the topic of index, over to you, David. How will members be able to find out their new handicap index and be able to access the data it was based on?
So by registering for the Scottish Golf website or through the Scottish Golf app, all golfers will be able to access their handicap information, which we hope to have readily available ahead of the change in November. You will need your CDH number when you register, so please ensure you've received this from your club. And the example we've shown you in the presentation will be what golfers will be able to access, so they're able to see what scores we've used in order to calculate their initial handicap index under WHS.
Okay, and what happens for members who do not have 20 competitive rounds in the last 3 years?
And so a calculation's done based on how many scores a player has on their record. For example, I think if you have 5, it's your lowest 1. If you've got 12 to 14, it's an average of your lowest 4. So depending on how many scores you have on your record, a different calculation and different averages applied to those scores.
Okay, if I can come back to you, Adam, the question is, how easy will it be to calculate my handicap at away courses?
This will be very straightforward. Players will have their handicap index and can easily work out their course handicap by looking up the course handicap charts on display at the club they're visiting, similar to like the ones we showed earlier in the presentation. Alternatively, you can look up the Scottish Golf app at the course and set a tees that you're playing that day, and that'll automatically tell you what your course handicap is for the day.
Very convenient. And staying with you, Adam, do you expect current handicaps to vary much?
The amount your handicap will change when transitioning to a WHS index depends on several factors such as frequency of play and how many scores you have on your record. During testing, we found that most players' new handicap index will be within 1 to 2 strokes of their current Congu handicap. Generally speaking, low handicap players may expect to see their handicap index to be slightly lower. Mid handicap players may expect to stay around about the same, and higher handicap players will tend to see a slight increase.
Okay, and coming back to you, David, the question is, my home club is slow to issue medal results, excuse me, and handicap updates, often midday the following day. How can I calculate my handicap adjustments when the World Handicapping system is in place?
Yeah, it's a good question. The scores will be sent to the WHS platform on the day of play, whether or not your golf club has closed the competition. So this will ensure calculations are actioned daily and that the player's handicap will be ready for the following day. Under WHS, as you can imagine, a player will not be able to self-adjust as they currently can do. So by ensuring the calculation is done daily, golfers' handicaps will always be up to date.
And also, David, so some clubs operate a winter handicap system, which suspended the summer handicap to allow the winter golf to be played. Would this be allowed under this system?
No, unfortunately not. Under WHS, as we said in the presentation, there's no inactive period in GB&I, so scores can be submitted all year round. If a competitive round of golf is played and it meets the requirements of WHS, then it is to be submitted against a player's record regardless of the time of year, because it is a reflection of that player's demonstrated ability at that time. Non-qualifying scores can still be set up, but only if they don't meet the requirements outlined in the rules. And golf clubs, you know, they should continue to offer their golfers as much competitive golf as they can, regardless of the year. But there'll be no option for a winter handicap solution under WHS. General play scores, as we've mentioned, is a massive opportunity, and these scores can also be submitted all year round, as long as the golf course you're playing on has a valid course and slope rating, and that the round has been played under the rules of handicapping and the rules of golf. So definitely a lot of golfers out there who potentially want to have the opportunity to upload those general play scores and competitive scores all year round.
That's really interesting. Moving now on to the topic of the playing handicap. David, staying with you for the moment. The question is the 95% of the course handicap for playing handicap compulsory?
Yes, in GB&I, the 95% allowance for like things like Stableford, stroke play, par bogey is mandatory. As Adam outlined in the presentation, this is based on a lot of data that has been provided by the RNA and the USGA and the national associations during testing. So if 100% was used, then competitions would not be equitable and would be favourable to the higher handicap golfers. By making these mandatory in GB&I, it ensures that consistency across every jurisdiction. And hopefully when golfers saw just how much the course handicap increased for the higher golfer, I think it shows, you know, really importantly why that 95% allowance has been applied for competitions.
Okay, and sticking with you, David, the question is, I play at 2 different courses. How will this affect my handicap? How will this affect how my handicap will be calculated moving forward?
Yeah, so as we showed in the examples in the presentation, you'll take your handicap index to each club. And then that course handicap calculation will take place before your round, and you'll be awarded your course handicap, which of course may be different at each club, depending on the slope rating. And after your round has been submitted, your adjusted gross differential will then be calculated and then converted into a score differential and applied to your scoring record. I think one thing is important to remember as a recommendation is that because a golfer can't self-adjust their handicap, so if you're playing in 2 competitions on the same day, you would use the same handicap index in both competitions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Moving on to the topic of scoring. Adam, come back to you. Well, the question is, will golfers be required to post a score for every 18-hole round?
So this sometimes a misconception out there, but no, only pre-registered general play rounds or qualifying competitions will count for handicap purposes. So social golf with friends can still be enjoyed without the requirement for players to submit a score.
Okay, and staying with you, Adam, can casual play qualify for handicap purposes, and how is this certified?
So as with the previous question, only pre-registered general play scores can count for handicap, and these would need to be certified by a marker deemed acceptable by the handicap committee, who keeps the player's score. Okay,
and what about, are there any buffer zones?
So there will be no buffer zones. Instead of the current 0.1 system, WHS will use a rolling average based system of the best 8 of your last 20 scores, which a new submitted score will be added to update your handicap index. And then depending on what score drops off your record and what recent score comes on, players will see more noticeable changes to their handicap than currently with the 0.1 increases.
And David, how will we enter an extra day or supplementary score on the new system?
Yeah, so general play scores will be submitted directly by the golfer to the WHS platform through the Scottish Golf app, or they can use the software that's being provided by the golf club at where that round is being played, or potentially could take a scorecard back to their home club to be submitted. However, if it isn't submitted on the day, it can't be used in the PCC calculation. So it is really important to, if possible, use one of the systems that are being provided at the golf club where you're playing the round, or using the Scottish Golf app to upload your score directly to the WHS platform. The important thing to remember, as we've said, is that pre-registration for a general play score must be done in order for that score to be valid.
Okay, understood. And stay with you, David. What happens to members who deliberately don't submit their score?
Yeah, so a penalty score can be applied to a player's record if they have not provided a valid reason for not submitting that score. And this can be determined by the golf club or added automatically within the system. This will be audited, as players will need to pre-register their intent to submit a score before the round. So we'll be able to check that a score has been submitted for that player.
Okay, now moving on to the topic of course rating. Adam, I'll come back to you if I may. The question is, what if a club does not have a slope rating?
So the good news is all affiliated clubs in Scotland have been rated to enable scores to be returned. if a course does not have an official course and slope rating, then the score couldn't be acceptable for handicap purposes.
Okay. And as a follow-up to that, Adam, we have 2 courses with different slope ratings. How is this accommodated under the new system?
So depending on which of the 2 courses you play on the day, you'll receive a different course handicap calculated from the slope of the course you're playing, and then scores from both courses will be returned to your handicap record to show the different differentials accordingly.
Okay, and lastly on that topic, Adam, is there a list of all courses and their slope ratings which can be accessed at any time?
We have developed a course rating database that will be available on our website and through the app, and this will allow every golfer in Scotland to access all the course ratings, and it will also include a course handicap calculator that David touched on, so that golfers will be able to see what their course handicap will be on any specific course and set of tees, and we'll be releasing that in the coming weeks ahead of WHS.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Adam. I'd like to move on the topic to the software, or the ISVs as they're known. David, will our third-party providers still operate as they do now once we've moved to the WHS?
I think the main difference is how the handicaps will be calculated. So now be calculated centrally by the National Association, so by Scottish Golf in Scotland, whereas previously they've been calculated locally by the club software provider. For competitions and general play scores, the ISVs who have taken and become approved under WHS will be able to upload all scores for competition scores and general play scores, so that the handicap calculation can take place centrally.
Okay, and staying with you, David, what system will Scottish Golf be using to deliver the World Handicapping System?
So the World Handicap System has been designed by the RNA and the USGA, but Scottish Golf have developed a WHS platform. It's been developed by OCS, and that's the system that we'll be using, that all the scores will be returned daily. The calculation will take place just before midnight, and then will be uploaded to the CDH handicap record the following day, or just past midnight, so the golfers will be able to see the new handicap index, and we'll use the current CDH platform for keeping all handicap records up to date.
Okay, and last on that, David, where will players be able to check their handicap changes and view their playing record?
Yeah, so players will be able to view the handicap information through the Scottish Golf app, or through the Scottish Golf website. That's the full handicap information, the scoring record, and all the scores that have gone into a player's scoring record in order to calculate their handicap index. You can download and register for these now, although you won't see the information until it's been uploaded. You will see your current CDH there now. And just remember, you will need your CDH number to access your handicapping information when you register.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Adam and David, for the presentation and then that Q&A there. So ladies and gentlemen, this brings a close to today's Zoom panel call. We'd like once again to thank you all for joining us today. And we hope hearing from the team here at Scottish Golf has given you some valuable insight as we prepare to implement World Handicapping System on the 2nd of November this year. Don't forget, if you'd like to catch up on any of today's discussion or to find out more information, please visit our website for more information at www.scottishgolf.org. Thank you for tuning in. Stay safe and a very good day to you. Thanks again, David, Adam. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.